Hey everyone, Tin Man here, and let's talk about today's daily jail in Dota Underlords. So today's jailbirds are Axe, Witch Doctor, Wind Ranger, Slark, Keeper of the Light, Bloodseeker, Io, and Shadow Demon. And the first thing to note here is the relative cost distribution of the different bands. So we've got Shadow Demon, Bloodseeker, and Axe, all one-cost bands. And that means that your other one-cost units who are not banned, somebody like Tusk, Tiny, Drow Ranger, Bounty Hunter, etc., are all going to be a lot easier to find to 2-star because there's just less competition at the one-cost spot. So you'll find more copies of the other ones a little bit easier. For the other costs, the Witch Doctor, Wind Ranger are the ones at 2 cost, and then Slark and Io at 3. That's about average, so you won't see too much of a difference. They're going to be pretty normal, but at 4 cost, you only see a single Keeper of the Light band. So that means that most of the 4-cost units are going to be a little bit harder to get up to 2 or even 3-star if you're going to attempt that. In terms of compositions that are going to be harmed by this, let's talk about the ones that aren't really. Wind Ranger in the Hunter Alliance doesn't really care about losing one of their low-cost hunters. Things like Wind Ranger, Beastmaster, Sniper, Lycan, Terrorblade, even Weaver are kind of all interchangeable in the Hunter composition. They just provide the Hunter tag plus another tag that probably doesn't always get completed, or another alliance that probably doesn't get completed. And so I'm not too upset to be missing out on Wind Ranger. You'll still be able to play whatever kind of Hunter comp you want, and most of the time you didn't even want Wind Ranger come the mid to late game anyway. On the flip side, you got a build with like Assassins with Slark, who is one of the key linchpins of the Assassin build, especially in the late game. He's one of the biggest carries if you can get a Mask of Madness on him, and missing him is really going to hamper having the 6 assassin build. So I'd try to avoid any kind of late game assassin build if you're planning on like going hardcore on 3 or 6 assassins. If you're just going to splash assassins into like a primordial build, you know, it might work if you're not going to run Slark, but Slark was one of the best assassins in the game, so that's a big loss to the assassin compositions. Speaking of primordials, Io is a big loss. It makes the 6 primordial build require both aces, both Enigma and Faceless Void, in order to complete 6 primordials. And Io is also just a great support unit in those 6 primordial builds anyway. I've been having a lot of success with 6 primordials paired with either mages or warriors, and seeing Io missing really discourages me from trying that at all today. So partially because it's easier to use Io to complete the primordial build, but also because as a druid, he bridges the gap very nicely between things like Lone Druid and Treant Protector into the late game when those guys start to fall off a little bit. Things like Bloodseeker and Axe are really not too detrimental to different strategies, at least not very strong meta strategies. Bloodseeker was one of the worst units in the game, and it's no real shame to see him gone. Axe was a relatively weak unit. Brawnies were fairly unimpressive outside of Beastmaster and Bristleback. Those 2 units are quite strong, and you might want to play those 2 together, but outside of those 2 pairings, you rarely ever went to 4 Brawnies, and you rarely went to 4 Brutes, and even if you did, Axe was definitely the worst of the Brutes, so not a huge loss there. If you found a Brute build that works for you, you can still try it, but Axe will just be gone. You'll get that online a little bit later than normal. Keeper of the Light is probably the biggest loss in mages. You just don't want to be playing mages today. You, just like the conversation yesterday with Lena as a human mage, you want humans to get you mana, and you need mages to be able to cast or to deal damage with your spells that you cast. So losing out on a human mage is just absolutely detrimental to mages, and especially one who's the big bulk of your damage. Keeper of Light is just so critical to mage builds that you just probably shouldn't play mages today. In reality, definitely not 6 mages, and probably not even 3 mages. So it's really unfortunate that this one banning probably has the biggest effect on any build, but it is what it is. He'll be back tomorrow, I'm sure. Other than that, we see like knights are pretty unaffected. They would typically be paired up with trolls, either 4 trolls or just 2. And if it's just 2 trolls, you generally didn't go with Witch Doctor. You generally went with Dazzle plus Bat Rider as a better combination. So not really anything lost here. You won't be able to go for 4 trolls until you find Troll Warlord, but knights with 2 trolls are still totally viable with Dazzle and Bat Rider. Shadow Demon doesn't really affect too much. It does make a Nessix a little bit weaker because you lose one of your best early demons, who also provides Heartless along with Pudge or Drow Ranger, so Shadow Demon is definitely a big loss. But outside of just a standalone unit, he didn't get incorporated into too many compositions, so nothing really gets more or less viable without Shadow Demon. We also don't see any warriors on here, so definitely look to be playing warriors and savages. Is probably going to be really strong right now. Things like Tusk, Bristleback, Lone Druid, Venomancer are going to be like really important combinations in this meta today, because no Warriors banned, no Savages banned. Things are looking good for them. So I hope you enjoyed this, and good luck in your games today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.